ready to form Voltron. Activate interlock. Dynatherms connected. Infracells up. Mega thrusters are go.
Let's go, Voltron Force!
What is going on, guys? Rogue TCG here, bringing the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG deck profile. You all voted for it, and I'm very happy to bring it to you. Here is Super Quant. Now, the reason I'm bringing this deck to you all today is because of this new card right here called Minimon. This card is fantastic, not just for this deck, but for a handful of other archetypes. We'll be covering the other one that is really quite good in tomorrow. But today I wanted to bring to you Super Quant because I think this deck is super cool and I really like the theming behind it because of course Super Quant is based off of Voltron, which is very cool. So that's enough yapping about the overall deck profile. Let's talk about the card by card. Starting off, let's talk about the main man in town, Minimon himself. It is a level 4 water psychic. You can banish one other card from your hand to special summon a card from your hand. You can banish one face-up level 4 or lower monster you control to special summon a monster from your deck with the same original type and attribute as that banished monster had on the field, but 1 or 2 levels lower than its original level, and use each effect of Minimon once per turn. Now, the idea is we are either going to be normal summoning Minimon or special summoning it from our hand by banishing a piece of non-engine in order to then use its effect to tribute itself off in order to get the level 3 Psychic Water Super Quantum Blue Layer, which has an effect on normal and special summon, and that we'll be covering it when we get to it. But this card functionally gets us to Blue Layer, and Blue Layer is the card we want to be getting to at all points in the combo. So this card is very fantastic for the archetype, and we're playing 3 of it because this deck doesn't actually have too fantastic of a normal summon. Next up, we are on Triple Diviner of the Herald. On normal or special, we can send a fairy from our deck or extra to the graveyard, and if we do increase this card's level by that monster's level until the end of this turn, if this card is tributed, we can special summon one level 2 or lower fairy from our hand or deck, except for Diviner of the Herald. You can only use each effective Diviner once per turn. Typically, you see this card being played in Ritual Brews in order to send Elder Entity Intes or Herald of the Arclight from your extra deck to the graveyard in order to either get pops or searches. However, with this card, we are going to be sending from our deck to the graveyard Trias Hierarchia. Now, this card says during the main phase of this in the hand and graveyard, we can tribute up to 3 fairies, so we can even just tribute 1 to special summon it, and it gains effects depending on how many we tribute. We're only really going to be tributing 1, so not really the most relevant effects on the second effects on this card. The main thing is, from our graveyard, we can tribute a fairy on our field to special summon this card from our graveyard, which is very important. We want to keep that in mind. So the idea is we go Diviner of the Herald to send Trias, Trias tribute Herald in order to summon itself, and then Herald, when it's tributed, we'll get to summon a fairy from our deck that's level 1 or 2. Very fantastic card interaction there, and it's what allows us to get into our Super Quants without even having to open any Super Quants. So I mentioned Blue Layer a little bit ago, now let's cover it now. We're on triple copies of Super Quantum Blue Layer as a level 3 water psychic. If it's normal or special, we can add a Super Quant card from our deck to our hand except for itself. If this card is sent to the graveyard, we can target up to 3 Super Quants in our graveyard, shuffle them into our deck, and we can only use each effective Super Quantum Blue Layer once per turn. Now, the main reason we're going to have that last effect on this card is because we are able to recycle our Xyz monsters from our graveyard, but we are also able to recycle our main deck monsters. Now, it kind of sucks that we don't get that draw that most modern archetypes get, where they get to shuffle cards back and then get to draw 1 card, kind of like how Ryzeal does it with their field spell. You put 2 back, you draw 1. Unfortunately, we don't have that, but we got to work with what we got, Next up, the fairy that we're going to be summoning off the Diviner of the Herald is going to be Super Quantal Fairy Alphan. This is a level 1 light fairy. Once per turn, we can target 1 Super Quant we control. All face-up monsters we currently control become that monster's level. We're not really going to be using that effect all too frequently, to be completely honest with you all. And we contribute this card to reveal 3 Super Quants with different names from our deck, where our opponent gets to randomly pick 1 for us, and we special summon that one to our field, and the rest go to our graveyard, which is really great because all of our Super Quants have graveyard effects, like you saw with our Blue Layer being able to shuffle 3 cards back. Blue Layer is probably one of the not great ones, so at least it's all up from there, But Super Quantal Fairy Alphan is very powerful because it allows us to either get, of course, our blue layer on our field or any one of our Super Quantums out on. And the only downside is it is completely random, so do with that what you will. Just make sure you select the right ones, and, you know, gambling always pays off. That is not an actual quote. That is just a joke. Do not gamble. But next, let us cover the rest of our Super Quantums, being Super Quantum White Layer. This one is a little bit more of legacy support, not so much so as the Link is. However, this card did come out after the other Super Quants, so it is a little bit more wordy than the other Super Quants are. And this card reads, we can send one non-light Super Quant from our hand or face-up field of the graveyard to special summon this card from our hand in defense position. When this card is normal or special summon, we can send one Super Quant monster from our deck to the graveyard, and if you do, this card's attribute and level become the same as that monster's. If this card is sent to the graveyard, we can add a Super Quantal Fairy Alphan from our deck or graveyard to our hand, and use each effect of White Layer once per turn. Very powerful card, being able to dump a Super Quant from of our choice from our deck to our graveyard on summon is very strong, and especially that card gain back effect where we're able to grab that Alphan back. More than likely, we're not going to be able to use it that turn. However, having it in hand as discard fodder or just hand advantage is very, very critical for this strategy specifically, because this deck really eats through our hand like nothing else, unfortunately. Next up, you all know it. You've seen it in Infernoble and all decks that include Isolde in it before Isolde got banned. Here is Super Quantum Red Layer. If you control no monsters, we can special summon this card from our hand. We can only use each of the following effects of Red Layer once per turn. When it's normal or special, we can target a Super Quant card in our graveyard and add it back to our hand. And if it's sent to the graveyard, we can target a Super Quant in our graveyard and monster reborn it, but it cannot activate its effects. Very, very powerful card, very powerful in warrior builds that were running it previously because it's just a free extender. However, in our deck, it's also monster reborn when it's sent to the graveyard, which is very, very strong for us. So we are maxing out on Red Layer in order to see it as frequently as possible, and to honestly just be able to do it multiple times throughout the course of a game, because the main idea of this deck isn't to just win immediately, it is to put yourself in a sort of control game where you're always destined to win because of the cards we opted to include in our deck. And then for our last Super Quant, we're on 2 copies of Super Quantum Green Layer. When this is normal or special summoned, we can special summon a Super Quant from our hand. If it's sent to the graveyard, we can pitch a card in order to draw a card. The card we pitch has to be a Super Quant. However, since all the Super Quants have graveyard effects, if we're too loaded up on Super Quants, it is not too big of a deal in order to ditch one in order to get a fresh draw from our deck. Our last Super Quant card in the deck is 2 copies of Super Quantal Mech Ship Magnacarrier. This card is searchable with blue layer, however we are playing multiple in case we wanted to search anything else with our blue layer, because we also are playing Terraforming and Thrust, which is able to search out our Magnacarrier like in a roundabout way. This card reads, you can pitch a card, target a Super Quantum monster we control to special summon an Xyz monster that has like that card's attribute straight from our extra deck using that card as material. It is treated as an Xyz summon, which is nice. And then an ignition effect where we can send this field spell to the graveyard, target 3 Super Quant mech beasts in their graveyard or we control, and then summon a Magnus, King of the Computer, from our extra deck using those monsters and their materials as material. Fantastic card. It sets up our Magnus. Now, I would like to be for real with you all. Do not expect to be making Magnus turn 1 with this build of the deck. This build of the deck is not designed to make Magnus turn 1. I imagine there are ways that you could do it if you open like the most nut hand of all time. However, that is not what the deck is designed to do, and Magnus is in here as like a turn 2, turn 3 finisher in order to close out the game and make sure there's no more coming back for your opponent. So that is the concept behind this deck. I would just like to preface the rest of this list with that knowledge. Speaking of, we're playing good cards in this list, not just Super Quants. We are also playing our good friend, Fiendsmith Engraver, 1 Lacrima, 1 Tract, 1 Fiendsmith in Paradise, and 1 Lurie. How the Super Quants end up kind of working out is they end up really just making some extra bodies. In our line that we covered a little bit earlier with Diviner of the Heralds, where we summon our Trias Hierarcha, we end up having an extra body on our side of the field, and if we have 1 extra one, let's say for example we dump something like a Red Layer with our Alphan, Red Layer is able to reborn the Alphan, then we're able to make a Moon of the Closed Heaven and go into our Fiendsmith line either ending on our DDD Wave High King Caesar for 2 summon negations, or our Fiendsmith Desiree, where we're able to use our sequence as a Link 2 monster in order to make our Link 3 Super Quant Link monster, which we'll cover when we get to it. So there's a lot of different things you're able to do with the Fiendsmith. It also gives the deck a lot more recursion and a lot more removal, because the Fiendsmith himself, of course, is removal, as well as more options for when we are setting up going first, because it doesn't feel as bad when you're not really setting up too many interactions, when you're also setting up a Lacrima and a Requiem in your graveyard, because during your opponent's turn, of course, if you are playing the meta right now, you do know that as soon as your opponent starts their turn, you can go Lacrima to bring back Requiem. The moment they hit main phase 1, if you want it as soon as possible, you can go Requiem Tribute itself to summon back out the Lacrima from our deck. Lacrima is able to dump Fiendsmith in Paradise, and then the moment our opponent special summons a monster, we are able to banish our Fiendsmith in Paradise to send our Desiree to the graveyard, use Desiree to shuffle back our Requiem, and send a card on the field to the graveyard. So that's a piece of interaction that we can load up just by having the innocuous combo of Requiem plus Lacrima in the graveyard. So even if we don't really end on any Fiendsmith like trademark cards, we are still ending on something if we go into our Fiendsmith engine. Now let's talk about our non-engine. We're on triple copies of Emergency Teleport, which is able to summon exactly Super Quantum Blue Layer from our deck, but that is perfectly good enough in order to include 3 Itelli, because Blue Layer can shuffle back the rest of our blue layers, you know? So we are able to basically always ensure Itelli is online. There's the Terraforming I mentioned, as well as the Thrust that I mentioned, as well as 1 Talents and 1 Call to the Grave for our hand trap mitigation tools. And then for hand traps, I'm personally playing the best hand traps in the game right now that you would be playing if you were playing a meta deck. Of course, this is, if you wanted to play the deck a lot more budget, you are completely in your right to be doing so. Just taking out the Fua, taking out the Fiendsmith, and replacing it with like more basic hand traps like Bell, Ogre, Veiler, so on and so forth might serve you a little bit better. It will cut down the price significantly so, but of course it'll cut down the grind game and the impact your individual hand traps are going to be performing during the game. So we're on triple Ash, triple Imperm, and triple Will Charm You Fool Ross, because this deck really eats through our resources really quickly, so when we're going second, Fool Ross can really save our ass. Now, that's it for our main deck. Let us cover our extra deck.
I don't mean to interrupt the video, but I do just want to give you all guys a heads up. We are quickly rising in our subscriber number, and I did want to make you all aware that once we hit 2,000 subscribers, I am going to be doing another giveaway. Now, I remember I did one once we hit 500 subscribers, and we did a special thing for 1,000, so I want to do something special for 2,000. And you see this beautiful mat right here? Well, it can be yours. I have 2 extra mats. There's one of them, and let me get that second one for y'all. I have 2 extra pristine mats for you all. So I got multiple of these, and to 2 lucky winners, I'm going to be giving one to one person and one to another. And the person who wins the overall giveaway is also going to get a full Orcust deck. I can't guarantee it's going to be max rarity, but I'm going to see what I can do, and I'm going to try and make it look nice and pretty for you. It's not going to be the full deck, it's just going to be the core Orcust cards, but I want to be able to give you one of you all the ability to play one of my favorite decks. So just something I'm doing for you. You can always pop into our Discord. I believe that's where I'm going to be doing the giveaway. The Discord's always going to be in the description of my videos. I'm going to have a little bit more details once we start rolling up on that, but I just wanted to make you all aware of that. Now, back to the video.
Let's cover our generic stuff first before we go into our super quants. We're on 1 SP, 1 IP, 1 DDD, 1 Necroquip Princess in order to make the DDD, 1 Fiendsmith Desiree, 1 Sequence, 1 Requiem, 1 Moon, and now we're covering our Super Quantals. Our Super Quantals are a really sick engine. All of the XCs, if they have the appropriate Super Quant monster underneath of them, they are quick effect, so do keep that in mind. I'm not going to mention that for all of them, but they all do something that is actually relevant in today's game. Like, it's really surprising that these cards were printed almost 10 years ago now, and the effects that they have are still relevant at quick effect speed in order to disrupt our opponent and stop them from making plays, which is very surprising. So, starting off, we're on 1 Super Quantal Mech Beast Ouroboros. It needs 2 level 4s. Of course, we could also just cheat it out with our Magnacarrier. And this card reads, you cannot attack unless it has Xyz material. They all have that text. Once per turn, we can attach an Xyz material from this card, Book of Moon something, and if we have green layer, it's a quick effect. And then if this card is Super Quantum Green Layer as material, and then once per turn, we can attach one Super Quantum from our hand or field to this card as Xyz material, which all Super Quantums will have, except for, I believe, Magnus. Magnus does not have that text. So this is a quick effect Book of Moon. Grand Pulse is a quick effect MST. Magnacarrier is a quick effect Trident. Target a monster on the field, destroy it. And Luster X is a quick effect Chalice. Target an effect monster on the field, negate that face-up monster's effects till the end of the turn. All of which are completely relevant effects in 2025. So, like, all these really make for a really great controlled toolbox where we're able to basically pick and choose what end board pieces we really want to be going along the way when we're doing our Fiendsmith plays, and then setting up what could be a Magnus for turn 3. So, speaking of Magnus, let us cover the main man himself. He is rank 12 and he's 3 level 12s. If it's sent to the graveyard, we can special summon 3 Super Quantal Mech Beast Xyz monsters with different names from our graveyard. This card gains effects based on the monsters with different names from your graveyard. This card gains these effects based on the number of monsters with different names attached to it. If we have 2 or more monsters, once per turn during the main phase, quick effect, we can attach one material from this card to shuffle a card on field into the deck that is non-targeting, non-destruction removal at quick effect speed. That is fantastic. That is like really strong. If we have 4 or more, it's unaffected by card effects except for Super Quants. So unless you are in the mirror, it is just a towers, a 3600 towers. So it is actually larger than Ultimate Falcon. And at 6 materials, it is just Thunder Dragon Colossus, where your opponent cannot add cards from the deck to the hand except by card effects. So just they're not allowed to add cards from deck to hand except by game mechanics. So they can only draw for turn unless of course they are under the effects of Time Tearing Morganite or something along that lines. I believe they do still get that extra draw even if Magnus is on our side of the field. Now, for our Link monster that I talked a little bit about, here is Neo Super Quantal Mech King Blaster Magna. This is the reason why we are kind of okay with just making 1x's, making a Fiendsmith like either the Fiendsmith Desiree or the DDD Wave High King Caesar with the Lacrima in graveyard. We're kind of okay with that if we're sitting on like one hand trap or one piece of non-engine, because this card reads it needs 2+ effect monsters, including a Super Quant, so we're able to use a Super Quant monster plus a Fiendsmith sequence in order to make this card. And this card reads, this Link Summon card cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Each time a Super Quant Xyz monster with a different name is special... This card reads, this Link Summon card cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Each time a Super Quant Xyz monster with a different name from the cards you control is special summoned from the extra deck to a zone, this card points to draw 1 card. If a face-up Xyz monster this card points to is destroyed by battle of your opponent's card effect, you can special summon a Super Quant from your deck with the same original attribute as one of the destroyed Xyz monster, and that is a once per turn. This card, incredibly strong. Not once per turn draws on this card basically allows us to keep digging through our deck if we're able to keep, of course, Xyz summoning, replenishing the lost cost for using our Super Quants, since everything either like discards, like the field spell, sends to graveyard, white layer or green layer, like we're losing a lot of resources as we are using this deck, so it's a very fantastic thing that this is helping us replace that. And it can't be destroyed by card effects, period, and it's a 2500 body, so they are going to have to either banish it with like an SP Little Knight, return it to our deck with something like a Nightmare Unicorn, or they're going to have to just beat it over by battle, or maybe use a Kashtira or something, but they are going to have to use resources to remove this, which is completely fine, because if they remove this, guess what? They didn't use the removal on something else, which means they're more than likely not going to be able to get through our complete board unless they've opened multiple board breakers. So I like this card a lot. I think ending on this card is very sick and swag, and if you are choosing to opt out of the Fiendsmith cards, it's even still fine, even if you don't have that link to, because you are able to use this card in order to draw into non-engine. So if you replace the Fiendsmith with like hand traps, you're drawing into more hand traps. So win-win, you know? And then our last card, of course, is our other giant mech, being Divine Arsenal AA Zeus Sky Thunder, because we are an Xyz strategy. That's it for our main. Side is going to be completely subjective to what your local metagame is, but this is what I'm opting to play. Triple Lancia, 1 Change, 1 Mind Control, 1 Snatch, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, triple Dark Ruler, triple Evenly, and double Forbidden Droplet. But that's going to be about it for the deck profile. Thank you all for watching, if you still are. And thank you to my one member. Thank you, Ari. If you want to become a member, please stay tuned to the end of the video. But that's going to be about it from me. Thank you all again so much for watching, and I'll be seeing you all later. Bye-bye. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you wanted to talk to more Yu-Gi-Oh players like yourself, I would highly recommend checking out our Discord server. Link is going to be in the description, as well as the QR code on screen. We do talk somewhat frequently about Yu-Gi-Oh and the current meta, so I would really enjoy to see you there. As well as we do recently now have channel memberships available on our YouTube channel, where we have 3 different tiers. We have Super Supporter at $2 a month, where you get loyalty badges, emojis, guaranteed comment responses, a shout out at the end of every video, as well as access to the members only Discord channel, where you get early sneak peeks at future videos. There is the Giga Supporter at $5 a month, where you have early access to all new videos about a day or two before they go up, as well as all the previous offers. And for $15 a month, we do have our final tier, which is going to be Femboy Fanatic. You get a guaranteed customized video every single month, as well as 1 hour of my time. Could be for anything you'd like. You want a duel? Absolutely. You want me to help build a deck? Absolutely. You want to play some Helldivers? Sure. I'll do anything for an hour once a month. But supporting does help me out quite a lot, and it does help me produce all of these videos. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be seeing y'all later. Bye-bye.